Thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or those who are in the process of overcoming any life topic. We have three objectives with this podcast series. Our first objective is we want you to know that whatever you're experiencing in life, whatever you're encountering, you're not alone. We want to join you to let you know that we together can help you through whatever challenge you may have that at the time may seem too difficult to be able to overcome. Our second objective is to help you determine with a very confident resolve there are multiple solutions, multiple factors involved in any life encounter. It's a matter of thinking into and thinking through the life situation you are encountering to determine the various options, the various solutions that are available to you. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If whatever you're experiencing is a result of a decision you made sometime in the past, such that if you had a life redo, you would make a different decision, we want to help you determine the objective facts and factors to evaluate to help you reach a more informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty. Together we are the Cooper Culture, and the Cooper Culture is sponsoring this podcast series. Kawan Glover is joining us for the third episode. Today we're going to talk about racism. Kawan is a black man. How do we overcome some of the racial tensions? How do we create genuine relationships with people of different skin color, different nationality, different ethnic backgrounds? Kawan talks very candidly about this and developing relationships. Marty, what are some takes that our listeners can gain from this and can apply to the racial, what sometimes is referred to as tensions in our country right now?
Throughout this podcast, Kawan showed to me he is a relational type person. He wants to build relationships. And he says, when you're talking to another person, another race, no matter what race it is, talk to them, look them in the eye, know their name, and show a genuine desire to get to know them.
I think, Marty, just having that genuine desire to learn to know somebody. I think if we spend more time listening than talking, we can learn who other people are. Kawan has some great insights into relations, and it doesn't matter what your skin color is to him. It's just a genuine desire for a relationship. Let's listen. Kawan, thank you. It's good to have you back with us. For our listeners who may be coming in for the first time to talk with Kawan Glover, he has two other episodes. I want to encourage you to listen to the first episode where he described to us the third surgery he went through to remove a cavernous malfunction, and he is still in the process of recovering from that. You'll learn that Kawan has a very positive attitude, and the second podcast we did is on resilience, and he has mastered the trait of resilience. But Kawan will tell you right up front, it's taken perhaps 7 years to develop that trait, not something that happened quickly or that he was born with, so to speak. But Kawan, let's change the topic only slightly. Let's talk about a very current topic of racism, the various topics associated with that, white supremacy, institutional or systemic racism. How can we get along with each other? How can we, let's say, I'm going to use some terms here, and you feel free to disagree with me or help reshape a conversation, but I certainly want to respect your skin color, your background. I don't want to do anything that diminishes any of that, but yet we're all human beings, and can we just get along with each other even if we may have a different dialect, skin color, and so forth? I just have a sense, for one, that some of these topics are dividing us, and for some people, it's becoming a permanent division that we just cannot get along with each other. And I'm hoping, Kawan, maybe you and I can share some ideas today that will be helpful to our listeners to overcome whatever it is that may be a divider between us that maybe we at least euphemistically describe as racism. Over to you, Kawan. Help us out.
Yeah, and again, I said on the last episode that I'm particular about words. So I looked up racism, and it says prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is in a minority or marginalized. And that last sentence really, rings home for me. As a black man, that's who I identify. My ethnicity is also African American. There are a number of things that this country has done to my people, done to me in particular, that I have had my gripes with, that I've had disagreements about, that I didn't find were just. But at the same time, there are things about my life that I wouldn't trade in for the world, and they only happened because I was black. I like to find balance in all situations. So, I have a very unique take on things. But I think one of the reasons we're so divided in this very technologically advanced, world is that we aren't, even Ron and I right now aren't sitting across from each other having a conversation face to face. If we were to get argumentative, there's no way to see from Ron to see if I was agitated or afraid or feeling uncomfortable, and it's vice versa. So I believe one of the things that is lacking from our society, when you see the Facebooks and the Twitters and Instagram, people can argue over digital text, limited character counts, nobody's communicating face to face. Nobody's having conversations where they take into account the other person's experience. Our brain and our eyes are designed to take into account the whole human face. When you're staring at a keyboard and a screen with somebody's avatar, it's easy to dehumanize them. And when you dehumanize somebody, you can tear them apart. Look directly no further than the Nazis of Germany, what they did to the Jewish community. They dehumanized them. They made them seem like animals so they can easily run the rhetoric of they need to be wiped out, essentially. So now in our country today, it's if I believe one thing, if you believe something else, you're the enemy. But there's no discussion of shared values. There's no conversation face-to-face about what we can do to meet in the middle. Often, if you're in the middle and announce that you're in the middle, you are seen as someone who can't make their mind up. You're indecisive. You won't choose a side. We have been forced into this tribal mentality where we have to choose things. And then you think about back into when we were cavemen, that's kind of how we were, very tribal, very with my tribe, you with yours, anyone else is the enemy. Well, when it comes to racism, it's a very sensitive and tricky topic to talk about. And I hear even when you were introducing the topic, Ron, it's almost like you wanted to cover all your bases to not step on any eggshells. I'm not easily offended. I find that when people speak out of about me and about who they think I am, it's a reflection of them, and they don't know my character. How can you make a judgment about somebody before you know who they really are? So as a black man, I see the discrepancy. I see the ideologies manifesting into hate and manifesting into a great division. But if I simply really believe if we had more conversations like you and I are having right now and getting to the nitty-gritty of it and seeing what people really feel like, there are a lot more similarities that will come to light than differences. And that's part of the solution to start bringing us back together.
I like everything you're saying, Kawan, and I, too, have observed that COVID has necessarily, to a degree, caused us to get into a period of isolation. But what has happened in some people that I have seen, and I have done a podcast on where I use the term keyboard warriors, meaning if someone says something on social media, rather than try to exercise empathy, as you very aptly described on our previous podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to win this one, that I'm going to ratchet it up I'm going to pound the keyboard, and I'll come out with maybe more inflammatory words until this thing gets to a position where we have no degree of empathy, but rather winning whatever argument we have is paramount. But, Kawan, I'm in total, radical agreement with you. If we are able to talk in real time, at least over the phone, my strongest preference is let's meet eyeball to eyeball so you can see the expressions on my face and hopefully know that I do care about you. I want to listen to you. I do care about what you've been through. Kawan, you mentioned that you have been a target of or a subject of discrimination and so forth. But as I know you, you're above that. You're not going to allow those kind of things to take you down, but you're going to try to work with a person maybe to understand what they're about. Am I hearing you correctly on that?
Absolutely, Ron. And again, being a human, you automatically have, your reactions, your instincts. So, my guard is up. I'm more defensive, but I've trained myself to be able to de-escalate a situation by openly understanding where the other person may be coming from. A lot of times, and this speaks to people in general, like you may come home to your spouse and you've had a rough day and your spouse asks you a question and you lash out. That cop that pulled me over and, grilled me unnecessarily may have had a rough day, may not be having the financial success he wanted or he or she wanted. Things like that we don't take into account because my feelings are in jeopardy and I feel this type of way. So it's a lot of, this must be motivated by race. This must be motivated by your hatred toward me because of my skin. Some people make those assumptions. And sometimes it is those things. But there's a guy named Daryl Davis that goes around the country and converts members of the Ku Klux Klan to leave the Klan. And that's because he's simply going around and having conversations and setting up meetings with these people and having very logic-based discussions about the beliefs and, dissuading them by seeing that the things they believe in are not based on anything but their own ideology that's been constantly regurgitated throughout their organization. So conversations are the key to getting this thing started. And then when you look at things like systematic racism, that's once you start having those conversations, people's eyes will begin to open and see some of the racist policies, see some of the racism that's inherent in the business model or the structure of the company or the structure of the government or the structure of the justice system. And you can start to dismantle those systems and come together as one nation under God, as it says in the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, when you have people adamantly, I will die on this hill of I'm better than you, or you're not, your race isn't pure, or you have all this hate in your heart, and you feel a certain way, you're not willing to hear any other point of view on both sides of the coin, we're going to stay where we are, and we're not going to get any better. I think the start of that is conversations, coming together face-to-face, and then spreading that change outward to change the systems, the institutions, and the parameters that have kept this embedded in our society for so long.
Let me start out from a perspective that you and I can't hate people. It's not a part of our character. It's not our makeup. It has no part in our life. But there are some, I'm a white person. I think our listeners can detect that with they're listening to my dialect. And so I do want to talk with everyone. I'm very interested in other people's background and so forth. Help me from an African-American perspective. I am having my first conversation with another African-American. I don't want to offend that person. I don't know if addressing them or thinking of them as a black person. I quite honestly don't know what the current term is, black person, person of color, or, those kinds of things. How would you recommend that I, a white person, start a conversation with a black person and not offend the person, but I want to learn the right terms. I want to get started with developing a good rapport, good relationship. That's where I'm going with this. It may seem to be rambling.
Yeah, Ron, and I think, the problem starts not when you address them, but the mentality you're going into the conversation with. And when I say that, I mean, let's say I ask someone on a date, right? And the person agrees, you show up at the restaurant, but in my head, the whole time I'm going to the date, I'm thinking this is going to be a waste of time, I'm not going to have fun, I should stay home. All these negative thoughts, and this is something, again, we already talked about, it's going to manifest. You're not going to have fun. The person that's with you is going to notice you're not having fun, and the date's not going to go well. It's the same thing when you're engaged in a conversation. If you're going into the conversation like, hey, I'm Ron Cooper, a white guy. I want this person to know that I know I'm a white guy, and I'm going to do everything possible to make sure he knows I'm a white guy, not trying to offend this black guy. You're going to start overcompensating, and you're going to slip up. But if you go into a guy confidently and say, hi, I'm Ron Cooper, what's your name? And address that person by their name for the rest of the conversation, you won't be worried about what to address them as or how to identify them as, because their name is their name. And you see them as a person, not as a person with a specific racial identity. Opening the conversation, asking somebody's name, shaking their hand, if people even do that anymore, is the best way to get a conversation started. I'm not looking for you to identify with my culture, my background, my heritage. I'm not looking for you to explain to me that you're a white person that's trying to do the best. Just address me by my name, and we can go on and have a conversation as two men or two women or two whatever, because we're no longer basing this on our racial identity. We're basing this on the content of two people's character.
And I like that. I think what you're addressing, Kawan, is a mindset. And that part of that mindset is, I just want to have a conversation. I want to learn. I want to develop a friendship, relationship. I think you're saying the person with whom I'm conversing can detect that just by the manner of a conversation, and let's just learn to know each other and care about each other. Is that a basis to start a conversation and develop a relationship?
Absolutely. A conversation is simply a conversation. It doesn't have to have overtones. It doesn't have to have a theme. It doesn't have to feel like one person is walking on eggshells and another person has a power dynamic. If you just are confident in who you are and have a conversation, and that's just it. It doesn't need to have anything else attached. And this comes from a white person. I can tell when I'm talking to a white person if they're trying to use the right words. If they're trying not to say anything insensitive, they overcompensate, they stutter, they look flustered. And, that goes when I'm, men are now, especially in the black community, a lot of times, as a man, I don't want to say the wrong thing to be insensitive to women. But if you address that woman by her name, you see her as a person, not just as a woman or an object. That's the same thing with cross-cultural conversation. Addressing people as people, and that is what they identify as or their racial background, is a better way to engage in the conversation.
All right. Hey, that's great. It seems that just what some people are ideologically defined, that is, if you're of one political party, you think one way. If you're of another political party, you think that way. And I am not trying to be political in any way at all, but it does seem that in some instances your political affiliation might determine whatever your attitude is toward a person, an ethnic, race, and so forth. But I think, again, Kawan, I just want to reemphasize that you're saying just start a conversation. Just start a conversation and genuinely care about me. And after that, everything, irrespective of whatever biases you may have, unless you are a person who, man, I just hate people of a different skin color, there are some people that won't change. But at least I've made an attempt if I just make this conversation just one of friendship. Am I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. Again, a conversation between two people is just that. But when you add on the element in your head, of racial overtones or trying to say the right thing or, being insensitive that is on your mind, and it will change the trajectory of the conversation. It'll change your mannerism. It'll change the speech pattern. It'll change the cadence of your voice, and we can pick up on that. So, again, a conversation is just a conversation. Now, if we want to have a discussion about this topic, that can be a different conversation. But if you're just shooting the shit, excuse my French, then it's just fine just to have that conversation.
For the white person who might be overcompensating, and you can detect that fairly easily, would you just be straight up with that white person? Hey, I'm okay. I, Kawan, an African-American, am okay with having a genuine conversation. Would you approach a white person like that?
And especially in this day and age, I think I would, and I think I would need to, because it would, one, let them know that, hey, I know you're not a racist. Hey, I know you're just another person. I know what you're attempting to do, and I understand why you're doing it, but I'm fine. And I think that alleviates a lot of anxiety, and then you can have a more genuine conversation. And that, to me, feels like something I can gain value from. When you have a real conversation, you never know what this person has, and that person never knows what I had. If there's barriers of race relations or racial overtones in the midst of that conversation, I only take offense, and it's very rare I take offense. When I only take offense when you are overtly racist, or like you're trying to manipulate me to say something, or trying to manipulate others around me. I think a conversation is just that. It's a conversation, and it's meant to be an exchange of values. And when you come in heavy-handed with I'm an ally, I support the cause, I didn't ask you any of that, so now I'm questioning why you had to say that. Now I'm questioning your background. What have you done or said before that made you need to feel that way to address me like that? So, actually sometimes that can do more harm than good than simply approaching me like you're trying to have a conversation.
Yes. Well, and I'm one of those people, Kawan, that I want to be, can I say, appropriately aware of some of the oppression that, and let's just say, Kawan, you and I are starting this conversation brand new. We've never known each other. This first-time conversation. I'm white. You're African-American. I want to approach the conversation in a way that I'm not insensitive to some of the possible oppression you have endured at this early stage of the conversation in this hypothetical. I don't know what you've experienced, but I'm interested in learning just who you are, but I certainly don't want to come across as insensitive. I don't want to come across as overcompensating, but then there's another part of me that says, I don't know if Kawan may be easily offended by any term that I use or so forth. And I do know there's some people who are easily excited into strife, and I don't want to get anywhere near that. And so there may be a tendency for me to overcompensate, but this conversation is very helpful. Don't overcompensate. That the longer we talk, perhaps even if the person with whom I'm talking has some racial discontent, maybe we can work through it just by having a normal conversation. Would you agree with that summary?
Absolutely. I think, looking at another person in their eyes and seeing, how they react, and I will know whether you are aware of any of the oppression or racism or systematic oppression that I face or my people have faced based on the way you approach me. If you come with your head down and you're almost groveling in your body language and you're like, hey, how do I say this in the midst of a conversation, I'll know you're overcompensating. But if, you're approaching as a person and you're seeing me as a person as an equal, it will manifest and show in our conversation. And, I honestly would like better if a person is overtly racist, because then I know where they stand. When a person is overcompensating, I don't know if they're trying to manipulate me or if they're a genuine person just not trying to step on my toes. So I'd rather you just be who you are, because that's how I view people, as people, and who they are. It speaks to their character.
Good. I think, Kawan, for those of us that want to do what we can to take a leadership role to try to work through some of the what appears to me to be racial tensions we have, and even that term may not be the correct term, but there is some amount of dislike in our nation right now. I'm just very dismayed that we have what appears to be a racial divide, and maybe it's more of a political divide, but I think what you're saying, and you and I would totally agree. Let's just approach conversations from a relational standpoint, and we can probably work through any disagreements we may have just by having a normal conversation. And I'm much like you. I'm fine if you're radically different from me. I'd like to know what it is you think and why you think the way you do. And I'm not here to tell you you're wrong, but I'm interested in what you think and why you think the way you do. But I'm very interested in learning more about you. I think what you're saying, Kawan, is if we approach conversations that way, we can overcome any amount of strife, and over a period of time, we can overcome a lot of the stuff, I use that term very loosely, very broadly, that's happening in our nation right now.
Absolutely, 100% spot on, Ron.
Juan, you've got great insight, and I do appreciate everything that you're saying. Again, I like to just have a call to action. Would you agree with me if we can just approach a conversation with the desire to have just a genuine conversation, develop a relationship, learn to have a genuine desire to learn about the person with whom we're speaking? We can overcome a lot of stuff, but it does require, I think, a mindset that I do want to have a genuine relationship, and I need to take an introspective look and try to identify any biases I may have and make a very conscious attempt to overcome those biases. Is there any other action you would recommend that we can take that we can help overcome some of the racial tensions we have?
Like I said before, and I'll say it again, Ron, just have genuine conversations. You people, as people, everybody deserves to be treated as a person with dignity and respect. Just have genuine conversations, have the discussions, the uncomfortable conversations, but approach people as people, and you'll see the benefits far-ranging. And the more conversations you have, the more comfortable you'll get, and the better this world will be.
I love it. Kawan, you speak with confidence. I love that in you. And you're very confident in yourself because you're aware of who you are, and your past will never define your future. We both feel that way, and we want to develop genuine relationship with people. Love you, man. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Ron.
What is your experience with racial harmony? In our nation today, we have a lot of topics, a lot of terms that are being used. White supremacy, racism, racist, systemic racism. There are a lot of things that are being discussed, and it's my experience that not everyone has the same definition for each of these terms. Kawan is very articulate in expressing his firm desire that we just have a desire for good relationships. He recommends starting a conversation just for the sake of wanting a relationship, wanting a sincere desire to learn about others. I do think if we spend more time listening than talking, we are in a position of learning about another person. We can learn about any situations they have experienced. We can learn about them. And when we show a genuine desire to learn about others, and we have as the very basis of our desire for a conversation, a genuine relationship, we want to get to know other people and to love them as God created us to love each other. What's your experience with racial harmony? What is your experience with racial tensions? Have you experienced something that is just too difficult to overcome? Or if you have overcome any racial strife, if that would be the term, any racial disharmony, how have you overcome that? What did you learn that you can pass on to others of us and be very helpful in creating racial harmony? Again, Kawan just says, just very simply, just start a conversation. Don't try to overcompensate. Don't try to even interject the possibility that someone else may think differently about race, skin color, and so forth. If we instead just enter a conversation with the genuine desire to learn to know each other, everything is going to work out just fine. I'm not so naive to think that everyone will agree with that approach, but I do think that the majority of people with whom we start conversations will be able to accept each other, and acceptance is a large part of having genuine relationships, getting to know each other, and having a better understanding of each other, albeit we may be very different in our values, we may be very different ideologically, any other reasons that do tend to separate us. Let us know your experience. Let's join in conversation. Let's join in comments. We hope that we can garner a 5-star rating from you with this podcast series. We hope that you will want to subscribe. Call us at 410-586-1875 or send an email to Ron at thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. The Cooper Culture website is thecooperculture.com. Let's engage, let's share ideas, let's advance people, and let's do the very best we can to create harmony throughout our nation. We look forward to interacting with you.